NC pork. Good for the plate, great for the state. On a Week 12 Saturday where the Triangle teams, to quote Dr. Seuss, stink, stank, stunk. The two best stories in the state this week were in Winston-Salem and in Greenville. And welcome back to another week of Baltimore State Football Daily here on the North Carolina Sports Network. I'm Mike Waddell, and I am joined, as always, by our offensive coordinator. He is a former national champion at Florida State University in 2013 with the famous Jameis machine going on down there. He's also coached an NFL Hall of Famer, class of 2025, Antonio Gates. We are talking about the one, the only, the greatest recruiter in the history of college football, Tim Brewster. And up and to our right, he is our defending champion here on the North Carolina Hollywood Squares. We are talking about that native of Guilford County, the former Elon Fighting Christian. Now they're the Fighting Phoenix, and what an ending to their game this past weekend. The proud alum himself, the man, the myth, the legend, our defensive czar, Jim Collins. And gentlemen, wow, what a weekend, what a lot of drama, but what a lot of bad football. I've heard a lot of coaches say after games like Dave Doran and Manny Diaz and Bill Belichick had, boys, it is time to burn this film. Jim, as our staff veteran, let you lead off with this one. How many games have you gone through your career where you just wanted to burn that video and not even think about it?
Well, Michael, plenty of them. You get in the position when you get your ass kicked, and then you get in the press conference and some guy wants to talk about your birthday. It really pisses you off. So I can completely understand. I remember the bad losses much more than I do most of the great victories. I carry the burden of a national championship ass kicking at the University of Nebraska many, many years ago when we were playing for the national championship in the Fiesta Bowl, and they just beat us brutally in that game. They're tough to get over. There were a lot of guys in the office this morning, or they didn't go home last night, right, Brew? They
Absolutely.
went straight to the office after getting their ass kicked, and they started watching that video, and they started plotting, and their families wonder where in the hell they are, because they've been in the office most of the night, and they've been there all day, and they'll be there till the wee hours. So it can be brutal, man.
Well, Mike, you know what? I made the coaches live the nightmare, okay? I've been knowing if we played a really, really poor game against an opponent that maybe we should have been favored to win and we didn't, I've been known to go back to the office, hug your wives, kiss the kids, go back to the office, and we're going to evaluate that tape right here, right now. And then at that point, we're not going to show it to the kids. On Sunday, when we bring the kids in, we're moving on. We're going on to next week's opponent. We're going to learn from the mistakes that we made in the game yesterday. I think that's absolutely critical from week to week. But again, like you just said, burn it, move on. And everybody in coaching has had, a number of those type games right there. But I was mad enough where I felt like, hey, if I'm going to be miserable on my Saturday night, I'm going to have my coaches be miserable with me. And that's what we did. We watched the tape and, we spent a couple hours looking at it, and they went home mad and I went home mad. And then we wake up Sunday and, hey, we're on to the.
And it sounds like everybody's mad in the Big Four this year because everybody has a loss to somebody else. Okay, so now it comes down to these last 2 weeks. Carolina has NC State in the finale, and this week against Duke in that 3:30 time slot on the ACC network. And hey, in a few weeks, we're going to see, another one of these games, Wake and Duke, right there at the end of the season. Guys, this is going to be a pretty intense couple of weeks for these coaches. He just got a real sock in the mouth in his first taste of Tobacco Road head-to-head competitions. Now, how much do you think that that's going to factor into his trying to not only assimilate to the college game, but try to be a part of these rah-rah rivalries and to feel the intensity? I think it's great that he's playing against Duke next, because he knows about Duke. He mentioned Duke in his press conference. So what will that bring out of this coaching staff this week as they try to awaken this zombie team that they have on offense?
He's got a challenge on his hands now. I think the Blue Devils look at it exactly the same way the Tar Heels look at it. There's not a whole lot of love. I'm one of the few guys that have been on both sides of this fence, so I know how it's looked at on both sides. It's a critical game for both of them. I made a list earlier today. The people that need wins to get into a bowl game and within the conference. Duke needs one. Clemson needs one. North Carolina State needs one. UNC needs two. So these next two games are critical for them, and FSU needs one. But the interesting thing is, I'm glad Coach Belichick is experiencing the Tobacco Road Trail in the North as he goes through in his first year. I think it's great for the conference that all the in-state teams are playing each other like they used to many, many years. It used to always be. Brew, you know that. You always finish with the three in-state schools.
Sure.
It's great that it's back that way.
Well, I'll tell you what, North Carolina is coming off again another less than stellar offensive performance against Wake Forest. And I'm going to tell you what now, the frying pan gets hot, going and playing Duke this week. Duke played not good football against Virginia this past Saturday. You wonder what they were thinking. It's a home game, but it looked to me like they were kind of sleepwalking. Wasn't sure the crowd was really into it. Jim, you can speak there probably more because you were at the ball game. I know this. It's a tremendous rivalry. University of North Carolina against Duke University. As you said, Mike, Coach Belichick at his initial press conference talked about the Dukies. Coach Belichick's father spent some time, if I'm not mistaken, as a University of North Carolina football coach.
Right.
So he witnessed rivalry between Duke and North Carolina. It's a game that, the victory bell is very, very important. And in recruiting, it's absolutely huge. I know this. Coach Brown took tremendous pleasure in bringing that victory bell to North Carolina and having it painted Carolina blue in front of the team.
Now, I wasn't going to go down this road this week, but Jim, you got to tell the story because Jim Collins, former North Carolina and Duke assistant coach, has been on the field for what I consider to be one of, if not the dominant football moment in the history of the Duke-North Carolina rivalry because it just spurred so much animosity and may have been responsible.
Now you took a team picture in front of the scoreboard. Jim?
Well, let me just tell the story.
It gets better, Bruce.
And the interesting thing is,
I happened to be there for that, Jim. Yes, sir, for that game.
For blocking the camera. So I'm going to stir this up a little bit. And it just so happens this past weekend, I did attend the UVA game, and I attended it with a guy that was a pretty decent football coach and has the greatest memory ever, and that's Stephen Orr Spurrier and Miss Jerry Spurrier were in town, so I was with them the entire weekend. We had an opportunity at Duke to win the ACC, but we needed to beat the Tar Heels, and we did win. Brew, you can stop your ears up. It was 41-0.
Put the salt on that thing, man.
But the history of that is that we started taking pictures after big wins after we won a game at Maryland much earlier in the season. And Coach Spurrier had told the team that if we beat North Carolina, we'll take a team picture because it would make us ACC actually co-champions with Virginia, but we don't tell that very often. So the game's over. We all go in the locker room, and we've actually forgotten about taking the picture. So we're in the locker room celebrating all those things. And then the players say, Coach, we got to take the team picture. So we actually come back out of old Keenan Fieldhouse is where we were. The old Fieldhouse was down there. We come out of old Keenan Fieldhouse, come back on the field. And for some unknown reason, they had left the scoreboard on with 41-0 on there. Well, my lovely wife at that time, who has since passed away, was the team photographer. My wife actually took the picture of us in front of the scoreboard. That story gets even better because years after that, I come down and an interview for the defensive coordinator's job with John Bunning. I didn't get it, but probably because I was in the interview with Dickie Badur at that time, the athletic director, and he has the damn picture on his wall. He's got the picture on his wall, and I'm sitting there looking at it, and I'm thinking to myself, I hope he doesn't ask me about this. Well, he did. He asked me about it, and I'm as honest as I can be. I said, yeah, it was a hell of a win. I said, my wife took that picture, just so you know that. Well, guess what? I didn't get the job. So, long story. Thanks for asking, Mike. I didn't mind telling that.
Need insurance? Go to a team that's got your back. The Lawson Insurance Group, run by the Lawson brothers, right here in Raleigh. They deliver real service, smart protection, and the kind of trust that's hard to find these days. Find them online by searching Lawson Insurance Group. That's LAWSON, Lawson Insurance Group, and tell them DG sent you.
Let's talk about Wake Forest, guys. And since 2001, this is an amazing piece of math here. Wake Forest is 50-29 against in-state opponents. That's a winning percentage of .633, and the best winning percentage and the most wins among the Big Four. Jake Dickert's big win total already this year, tiring the old trench fighter Bill Dooley, old Magnolia Mouth, who got 7 wins in his first campaign in Old Gold and Black, and Jake Dickert is already there. And I got to tell you guys, it's really impressive to see what Jake Dickert has been able to build on not as big a budget as really anybody else in the Big Four. Duke has a bigger budget, State, Carolina, obviously a bigger budget, but Jake Dickert has done it and did it with the remains of probably the worst team that was in state last year, and that was at Wake Forest under Dave Clawson.
We got to take our hats off to Jake Dickert and his staff there at Wake Forest. They've done an outstanding job. And I saw Mike, and I mentioned it to you earlier, that he ought to be up for National Coach of the Year, certainly the Coach of the Year in the Atlantic Coast Conference. Just really outstanding. And again, to win at home against the North Carolina, some sparks were flying there between him and Coach Belichick towards the end of the game, and that makes it even more fun. A lot of people talking about that, and I thought, like I said, you just got to really be positive about what Coach Dickert's doing with that. He went and got a quarterback. Duke went and got one of the best quarterbacks in the country, and they paid a lot of money to go get him. I'm not sure about the deal at Wake Forest and what they paid to get Robbie Ashford from Auburn, but I'm going to tell you what now, he's done a nice job. Deshaun Purdy has done a good job. He was at Charlotte with us last year, and so he's gone out in a very subtle way, Mike, and really upgraded his roster, really done some really good things with that roster. But most importantly, they're playing fundamentally sound. They're getting after it. Their fan base is excited.
How does this type of a win by Wake Forest or a win by Duke help them in the state of North Carolina in recruiting? It has to be really tough to recruit to Wake Forest or Duke. Is that a misperception on my part, or is that somewhat in the neighborhood of being accurate in the sport of football? We'll just focus on that.
Having spent so many years at Duke, and the way things are now, Mike, I don't know that I have an accurate answer because money is so involved in everything now and all the decisions that are made. But to be honest with you, at the times that I was at Duke, if a player had a UNC offer and had been a North Carolina fan forever, we were very selective about the guys that we wanted to pursue because we felt we may be wasting our time if they had a Tar Heel. They'd been Tar Heels all their life. Now, we would challenge NC State. We never backed off from NC State when we were at Duke. We would go against them, but it was hard to beat North Carolina in recruiting with kids that had been Tar Heel fans all their life. Just like being in Florida and you had Florida Gators that have been Gators all their life. You expected to get those guys. The money in the business now has changed that a little bit. So what our philosophy was at Duke at that time, and it still is now, is we went all over the country to pick players that fit Duke University. and fit the philosophy of the head coach at that time and the staff at that time, and fit Duke academically, and they had the same goals that we had. So yeah, it was a challenge to beat the Tar Heels in recruiting. We had some success against North Carolina State, a little bit of success against the Tar Heels, but not very much, especially when Mac was there and Brew was there. They did a great job recruiting the state. It's hard to beat those guys if they wanted them.
An absolute stroke of genius by Coach Brown when he first came to North Carolina. The state of North Carolina is the most underrated state in America for high school football players. Everybody talks about basketball, but it's proven true to this day that there is a great deal of really good football players in the state of North Carolina. And so Coach initiated this thing, this state championship. He wanted desperately to beat the in-state schools, and he felt like it was absolutely vital towards us, our success moving forward. And so, we were going to go and we were going to get after Duke and Wake and State and really put a great deal of emphasis on winning those games. And we did win those games. We got it rolling where I think there was a stretch of 8-9 years where we didn't lose to any in-state team, and we got, when we were really rolling, Mike, in the 90s at North Carolina, we had more NFL draft picks than any other school in America. 95% of them were from the state of North Carolina.
Okay, but I got to ask you this question.
Okay.
Back in the day, when you were there and it was all rolling there in the 90s at North Carolina, you weren't losing to those schools, be honest. And then I want you to hear your Benedict Arnold side after you went over to Carolina and worked for a year.
Yeah.
But who is the number one rival for Carolina football? Was it this week's opponent, the Victory Bell game with Duke, or was it North Carolina, NC State?
I'm going to tell you, I think that, for 3/4 of the team, it was Duke. Okay. It was
really?
Duke. Yes, absolutely. And then there was a faction that really felt strongly about beating State, and that was really, really important to a lot of kids in the state of North Carolina, because Jim said it. There weren't a lot of kids from North Carolina on the Duke roster. Okay. Duke was a national school. They went out and recruited kids a lot like Stanford does. And so, but I make no mistake about it. We wanted to get after both those teams, Duke and NC State. But I think if you really, there's one team that we played for the Victory Bell. Okay. And that Victory Bell was important to the Tar Heels.
Damn important. And it was important for the Blue Devils. But I've got to say this now, that road down the 90s got a little bit easier for the Tar Heels when Coach Spurrier and us, we packed our stuff up and went to the University of Florida.
Jim, let me tell you, 100% I agree with you. And there's no question that that's a true statement.
So, but since we've already gotten onto this, and I do want to come back and talk about the NC State game against Miami and the pains that our Wolfpack friends are finding here in the late part of the season. Both Jim and Tim have alluded to, they are in position to make a postseason. But let's talk about your best all-time Carolina-Duke rivalry memory, Brewster, because we just heard from Jim Collins about his favorite Duke Carolina memory.
I mean, there's so many. Jim couldn't be more correct. When Coach Spurrier was the head coach at Duke, that was a different deal, man. That was a different deal. And I'm going to tell you what, the truth be known, Mac Brown is from Tennessee. What did Coach Spurrier call Coach Brown, Jim? He called him something.
You're going to put me on the spot with that.
I'm just kidding. He called him
football.
Mr. Football. Yeah.
Now you're gonna get Mac all pissed off at me now.
No, man. And it's just out of real respect to Coach Spurrier, because I went to Florida, Jim, and I was at Florida for 2 years, and I really spent some quality time. Coach Spurrier was a neighbor to me and my wife, Kathy, and I just have so much admiration for him, and he was such an outstanding guy. So, that team picture that y'all took, I don't know that there's anything that made more of an impact on us at North Carolina than that right there. That was, it was a burning deal, and it was something that I don't think anybody at the Tar Heels ever gave up on, and not remember the fact that the Duke Blue Devils took a team picture in Kenan Stadium in front of a scoreboard that said 41-0, and that was a tough one, man.
Man, I got to share with you guys my all-time Carolina Duke football memory. 1976 at Wallace Wade Stadium. I went to the game with my dad, who I started going to games with in 1969, and my godfather, who was the captain of the 63 Gator Bowl team at Carolina. His name was Gene Sigmund. And they would get into the Crown Royal pretty good, especially when it was a late November game. And it was the best defensive line I've ever seen in person, because it was anchored at one end by D. Hardison and the other end by a guy who's a hell of a coach too. His name's Rod Broadway. And they literally met right there on the Raleigh-Durham line. It was Research Impact Park that day at Wallace Wade, right on the quarterback named Mike Dunn at Duke. And he was down on the ground for 45 minutes. I mean, they knocked him out and it broke his neck, and it was a heck of a hit. But I've never seen anything like that. And when you're 7 years old, that kind of thing makes an impact for you. So it was those two giant defensive Goliaths, D. Hardison and Rod Broadway, coming together on a quarterback. So, Brew, that doesn't make you happy as an offensive guy, but Jim, that's the kind of stuff you dream about when you have players like Hardison and Broadway coming from either end.
Hey, what? They're both kids from North Carolina, am I correct?
Yes, they are.
Both those players are from the state of North Carolina.
Yeah.
Rod's from Stanley County. Rod's a great friend, lives in Myrtle Beach right now. And you're talking about a hell of a football coach now. Really,
yes, sir.
A hell of a coach. 5 national championships, in HBCU, and 1 at the University of Florida with us. Great football coach.
And 1 back surgery away from having an Alliance of American Football FanDuel championship.
Hey folks, DG here. When I want authentic Italian food served with a side of NC State tradition, I head to Amedio's restaurant. For 60 plus years, Amedio's has been feeding fans, families, and sports legends with unforgettable pasta and pizza, and with Wolfpack pride on every wall. It's an absolute must-stop located right near the NC State campus. Check out the menu, place a catering order, or reserve your table for lunch or dinner today at amediosrestaurant.com. That's AMEDEOS restaurant.com. So you too can experience a true Wolfpack and Raleigh classic.
The Wolfpack 41-7. They went down to the Hurricanes on Saturday down in Fort Lauderdale. And it just seems like NC State's identity got taken away. Their offense had been leading hard on the run game. Miami held them to 29 rushing yards and only 149 total yards. CJ Bailey had 2 picks. Only score came late for the Wolfpack, and just not a good day. And for NC State, they certainly lived up to the stink.
Mike, it was just a tough day for the Wolfpack, down there at Miami. Miami's a good football team. They're playing at home. They had their crowd going. And, it just is one of them games where CJ's throwing an early pick, then another pick, and, it just didn't come together for them at all. They never got the offense going. Defensively, they really struggled to get some stops. Just, it was a hard day for the Wolfpack. Yeah, I think that's the best way, Jim, to describe it. Maybe you can go ahead and give it a little bit more clarity, Jim.
No, really, I've watched some of the highlights from it, and I did not watch the game because I was obviously at the Duke game, but I have watched some highlights from it, and I know that Miami does an outstanding job with pressure and sim pressures and man coverage. They're very, very multiple on defense. You're talking about a Miami team now that is first in this conference in scoring defense, and they're first in this conference in total defense. So this is a very good Miami team that really is shocking that they're sitting there with 2 losses. Unless they get very fortunate, they're not going to make the SEC championship game. So things have got to happen down the road. I was concerned about the Wolfpack defensively going into Miami. I thought that the state offense would play better than they did, but it was an extremely difficult day to try to play against the Hurricanes. They were ready to play, and the Hurricanes are in position now. If they can get a couple of breaks, they can possibly get in, but 2 losses early in the season are killing them.
I thought Miami's speed and athleticism really showed up. I
Oh,
thought, really, to be honest with you, coach, in all three phases, you look at the special teams, and I think there's a great opportunity for you to see what type of speed, what type of athleticism, because these are guys that are somewhat backups, that type of thing. But I'm going to tell you what, Miami's coverage units were outstanding. They did a great job. And, receivers, they've always had great receivers. They got Michael Irvin over there on the sideline waving the flag and getting everybody all excited. And it was a good day to be a Miami.
Hey, the Friday night lights are going to be shining over at Carter Finley Stadium coming up this Friday night as the Seminoles come to town against this Wolfpack. They get back-to-back Sunshine State teams, but will they find a ray of sunshine now, Tim Brewster, with this resurgent Florida State team that is all of a sudden looking pretty good again?
Florida State did a nice job against Virginia Tech on Saturday night, and Virginia Tech has replaced their head coach and they're in transition. I thought Florida State did a really nice job because Norvell, everybody's talking about him possibly being replaced as the head coach at Florida State, and he's got to win, and he's got to win now. But I'll tell you what, they've done a nice job, and this will be another challenge for them on Friday night. It'd be a big challenge for NC State. I know Coach Dorn is a prideful guy. I know this. I've got great faith. I got great confidence in his ability to prepare his team. I think it's going to be one hell of a game on Friday night. I think there's going to be two teams really working to win that game.
The Wolfpack is 4-1 at home. So they've played very well at home. They're 1-4 on the road. Therefore, they're 5-5 at this point. So they will play well in Carter Finley without a doubt, because the Wolfpack fans are really good, and they're one of the few places that you go in the ACC that rival an SEC crowd. So their crowd is into the game, and they'll be into the game on Friday night. And I think it'll be a tough place for Florida State to play. And I agree with you. Coach Doran's got he'll have his team ready to play. There's no doubt in my mind about that.
A lot about the Big Four over the balance here of the 2025 season. And one of the big debates in North Carolina sports is who is that fifth Division I school in North Carolina? Is it the newest one, the University of North Carolina at Charlotte? Is it Appalachian State University, which is now one of the most winning programs in all of the history of college football in terms of national championships, especially in the last 50 years, but has fallen on hard times right now and has lost 4 straight games, only 1 win in the Sun Belt? Boy, the Pirates are looking good. A year ago, they ditched Mike Houston right in the middle of the campaign. Bring in Blake Harrell, the defensive coordinator, comes in and leads them to a big bowl win over NC State. And now he gets that program-defining win this past Saturday night against Memphis. And one-time coaching carousel name of the week, Ryan Silverfield, who was reportedly headed to Fayetteville, Arkansas, to be with the University of Arkansas Razorbacks.
I'm good friends with Ryan Silverfield. He happened to be an assistant D-line coach for the Minnesota Vikings when I was the head coach of the Minnesota Gophers, and so he's an outstanding coach. Jim knows that. I mean, he's a guy that no nonsense, no BS about nothing. He's going to have his team in. And, I'll tell you what, he ran into a buzzsaw. I mean, I'm just going to tell you guys, if you have never been, and both you two guys have, okay, that's a tough place to go play now over in Greenville, North Carolina, and they were all jacked up on Saturday. They played their tails off. And you know what? I mean, hey, again, take your hat off to East Carolina. And I think you're right, Mike. I think, it's no hidden secret to anybody that East Carolina has been a good program, right, Jim, for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's a dang good program. They've won a bunch of games and they've had good football coaches. And right now, they seem to really be in a good place. I feel badly about Ryan Silverfield. I think that he's very deserving of being a head coach at any level, at any team in this country. He's done a magnificent job at Memphis. But, facts are facts. They want to know what you're going to do in November, right, Jim?
I've had the opportunity to visit with Blake Harrell and talk football with him, and he's a sharp young coach. And just observing as an outsider, he does a great job of blending the players together. And it appears to be, and again, I'm an outsider looking in at it, it appears to be a team that is not only coach led, but it's player led also. He's taken this group and he's molded them together, and they're playing as a team, and it's really exciting. But Brew is correct. East Carolina has a long history. It's fluctuated a little bit over the years. When you think about it, you got Memphis coming to town, and I'll use them as an example. Guess what? Greenville, North Carolina is not an easy place to get to. Logistically, you've got to decide where you're going to fly into, or you're going to bus into. If you fly into Raleigh, you're going to take an hour bus ride. Where are you going to stay? You're going to stay in Greenville when all those Pirate fans are going to harass your ass all day long, or in the hotel, or are you going to stay in Raleigh somewhere? So it's a tough decision.
Okay, when you're on the road, sometimes you run into some unique experiences. It can happen at a regular season road game or at a bowl game, but it's somewhere you guys have some really cool story about team travel and maybe the opposing fans. Go ahead there, Jim Collins. Give me your best one from those Florida Gator years in the SEC where it just means more.
Well, the most interesting place that you go, all of them were tough. Tennessee with the Navy there, to go to Auburn, to go to Alabama, to go to Mississippi State with the cowbells and those things. But the most unique place that we ever traveled to, and I think we've talked about this before on this show, is to go to Baton Rouge on a Saturday night to play the LSU Tigers. And I'll tell you this quick story, and I'll clean it up as much as I can. But you don't stay in Baton Rouge, I can tell you that. There's no way you stay there. So you have to bus in, and we're busing into Tiger Stadium. The interesting thing is I'm going to do this the nicest way I can. In a lot of places, Brew, I think you'll appreciate this. A lot of places in the ACC and even in the Big Ten, when you come in on your bus, you got the fans out there and they're waving at you. You know, they're doing that nice wave and welcoming you there. They wave at you in the SEC, but they only use one digit to wave at
Nice
you, and they double it with the other side. So fans out there, if you can read between the lines, you'll know which digit that it is. So we're coming into play in Tiger Stadium, and all of a sudden, up ahead, I'm going to use the term lady. This lady decides that she wants to tell us to kiss her rear end, so she moons our buses as we come into Tiger Stadium. When you get off the bus, they get these metal stanchions for you to walk between. And those Cajuns have been there drinking all day for a night game, and they're screaming at you, Tiger Bay. And then you walk out of the dressing room onto the concourse, and there's Mike the Tiger waiting on you. So it's an interesting and a great place to play.
All right, I got a good one for you, Mike. I was a Texas Longhorn, and we bussed to College Station, Texas, to play the Texas A&M. This was a tough deal because they had just had the bonfire situation where they lost a bunch of kids. They were building their bonfire the night before the game, and they lost, and so we bus in there, and we bust in the day before. We're staying at the Holiday Inn in College Station, Texas. All right. And we're going through our routine, and everything's pretty good. It's 2:00 in the morning, and every player, every coach gets a phone call. Phones ringing all over the hotel and didn't stop. Now, I don't think that was by accident. I don't think that was by accident at all. They had it set up where they were going to wake everybody up. The next thing is we come down to pregame meal. There's nobody there to serve the meal. We're sitting there and we got no food. We got a team full of players hungry as hell to eat their pregame meal, and there's nobody there to serve it. There's nobody there to serve the breakfast, And so we got the whole team walking outside, crossing the street, going to Hardee's to get some biscuits, okay? This is the God's honest truth. And, and I'll tell you what, it just goes to show you what they can accomplish if they really use their imagination. They woke us up in the middle of the night. We didn't get breakfast. We didn't get our pregame meal. And, God bless, I guess, for the most part, we did lose the football game to the Aggies on a day in which they honored a bunch of kids who lost their lives in that bonfire accident that they had. But I thought it was really good, pretty good stuff on Texas A&M's part to try to shut us down like that.
One thing I heard today, and I spend a lot of Sundays talking to coaches of all levels, high school and college and former pro. I love to learn because coaches will tell you about anything, especially when they're not in the game anymore. It's why we like having you guys on here because you give us the good stories. But when I'm talking to these coaches and they're talking about what it takes to put into an NIL contract today, and I'm hearing about some of the guys out there who are playing in big time positions. Let's say they're an edge rusher or a middle linebacker or a cornerback, a running back, a wide receiver, or maybe a quarterback. And sometimes a fan base will be out there and they'll be saying, well, why is this guy, it might be a quarterback, why is he playing and not being replaced in the lineup? And then it's brought up that sometimes these schools are maybe overthinking things when they're putting these agreements together. And even though they might not be the most legally binding agreement, the word of honor agreement is that this kid is going to play this many games as long as he's healthy and he's going to have the opportunity. So even if he's not your quarterback for the future, you've got to make him your quarterback this year and get him as much tape as possible. I literally heard that type of story today. Tim Brewster, you've been in the game as recently as just a year ago today. Does that kind of thing surprise you that that stuff is going on in college football right now?
No, Mike, it doesn't surprise me because that's the world we live in right now. I mean, the NIL world is a different world for Jim, for me, for all of us. It's unfortunate that there are situations out there where the best player is not playing. The best player, the better player, may be on the boundary watching a kid who's getting paid a lot of money and has some guarantees to play time in his NIL contract. To me, that's totally unfortunate. I just always believe that the best players should play. The players that give you the best chance to win should play. But unfortunately, that's not where we're at right now. And there are situations where the best player is not playing.
Is that an NFL thing or is that an NIL thing?
Yeah, I think that's right now it's more of an NIL thing than it is an NFL thing. I think in the NFL is going to continue to do a better job, I think, of playing the better player, to playing the best player. I didn't ever feel like in the 5 years I coached in the National Football League, at any point there was a guy, Jim, and I want to hear your opinion here. I really believe that I thought that the NFL coaches really, they played the best guys that gave us the best chance to win. I don't feel like that's the case right now with what we have going in college ball with the NIL.
The one thing the old veterans, and I was not in the league as long as you were, but the old veterans in that league taught me something very, very early. Coming in as a college coach, coming into the NFL, they said, Jim, don't ever get into a discussion with a player about their money. Don't ever talk to them about their money. Don't ever say to them that you should be making more money. You're a better player than you are, or you should be making less money. Because the first thing that's going to happen when you talk to them about their money, especially if they think they should be making more and you tell them they should be making more, guess where their next stop is? Their next stop is the owner or the general manager's office. And they're going to say, hey, Coach Collins said I'm not making enough money, that I'm worth more money than I am. So that's the one thing. I didn't want to know how much money they were making because I wanted to play the best player.
I was told by one Kansas JUCO head coach that different schools now in the southern United States, so this includes both ACC and SEC schools, are coming to these JUCOs that are running the ball very dominantly and trying to bring their entire offensive lines in as contiguous 5, maybe 6-person groups. Again, Tim Brewster going to the JUCO ranks and trying to bring an established offensive line. How tough would that be to actually pull something like that off at the major FBS level?
Ask because I was a junior college player. I went to Pasadena City College in California, played for Harvey Hyde, and we lost one game in 2 years, had an amazing team. 7 of us off my team at Pasadena went to the University of Illinois. Now, we weren't all offensive linemen. I just haven't seen that, Mike. I've never heard of somebody going in and recruiting all 5 offensive linemen.
One of the things that we've talked about a few times so far this year has been the immediate success that Curt Cignetti had at Indiana. And again, why did he have immediate success? Well, he brought 13 players from a damn good football team at James Madison. He brought 6 assistant coaches that had been with him for a long, long time at multiple stops, including one here in the state of North Carolina when he was at Elon. And he brought his strength coach. If you're a head coach, who do you put more stock into in having immediate impact on your culture? Offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, or strength coach?
Your strength coach is just absolutely vital. He's going to spend more time with the players than any other coach on the staff. I really felt like, as a head coach, the biggest hire I needed to get right was my strength coach. I felt like we did a good job with that. I just think that the strength coach is absolutely vital. And then going from there to your DC, I think you don't win football games unless you play great defense. You know, I spent more money on my defensive coordinator than I did my offensive coordinator. I just felt like that was how I was going to do things. The other coordinator that's absolutely vital, Mike, is your special teams coordinator.
Your strength coach is so critical. Any place that I've been, we've been really good. You'll know this name, Rich Tootin. Rich Tootin came to us at the University of Florida. We had won an SEC, but he made us elite when he got there. And then the guy that's at Oklahoma right now, Jerry Smith. Jerry Smith was our guy. Jerry's been at Texas A&M, at Oklahoma. The guy that's at Oklahoma State right now was our guy at Florida also. I'll tell you this, the strength coach has to be an analyst with them, but he's got to be a badass also. And he's got to get after their ass, and he's got to get them to the point where they are ready to go play in a game. Rich told us, first day he came on the job, you'll laugh your butt off on this. First day he came into staff meeting, he came in and he said this to us, in front of the whole staff, Coach Spurrier, everybody. He says, man, you guys are welcome in the weight room anytime to watch what we're doing in there. You're welcome when we're on the field, running stadium steps. You're welcome to be there. He said, but do not get in a conversation with one of those players. He said, that's my time. I don't come on the practice field and pull them out of a drill and start talking to them. So keep your ass out of there. You can watch, but don't talk. We all think about what we would do. And I've been a defensive ball coach all my career. So guess where my butt's going to be sitting most of the time in game planning? I'm going to be in that defensive room. So I would probably spend more money on an offensive coordinator than I would a defensive guy, because I'm going to lend what my expertise is in that room. But Brew is so correct. Special teams, especially as screwed up as punt protection is and punt coverage is in college football right now, with them spread all over the place. You better have a guy that understands it and can get players coached up. Look at the Tar Heels. And Mike Prefer is a good football coach now, got a long tradition. They get 2 field goals blocked. 2 field goals blocked in a game. They make a 56-yarder, but you can't get field goals blocked. Give up points.
But I think you underscore what Cignetti took with him into that job at Indiana. I mean, 13 players, 6 assistants, and your strength coach. You've got a cadre of leadership on the field. You've got guys who understand what you need as a head coach, and you let everybody kind of, participate in putting together the family, as he calls it. And then you bring in that strength coach, that master wizard who weaves it all together. Man, that's the ready-made formula. So I think it's got to be a lot easier if you're going to have immediate success that you would do. I mean, Brew, we were just talking about it a second ago. You go get a unit off the field with a coaching staff. Why not go get, 2-3 receivers from the number 1 JUCO thing? And the best thing about the JUCO kids is they're going to be here for 2 years. They're probably not going to leave you after 1. So is that the new loyalty? Is that the new long-term lease?
There's one
that
word,
you're looking on?
One word that I think encapsulates it all for success in college football: coaching, playing. It's continuity. Continuity on your staff, with your players, with your roster is going to allow you to win football games. And that's what Coach Signetti did going to Indiana. He brought great continuity. And you look at the successful staffs and teams, and they're bringing the coaches back. They're bringing players back. It's vital.
These jobs that are open at the present time, you want to hire somebody that's in a very successful program, whether it's Lane Kiffin or whomever it is. Because guess what they have the option to do? These wild and crazy times, if I hire a coach from a very successful program, guess what he can do? He can bring half his team with him because they can all transfer and go with him. So you can reshape a team now a lot quicker than you could years ago because of the transfer portal. And if you got enough money to pay them and get them there, then you can become a much stronger program in a very, very short period of time.
For the first time in 55 years, it's the Golden Bulls of Johnson C. Smith down in Charlotte. They are the champions of one of the proudest leagues in college football, the CIAA, and they are the number 2 overall seed in their region and will play against Frostburg State coming up on EN Plus, 1 o'clock this Saturday. Guys, I know you probably have heard of the reputation of Coach Flowers, and Jim, obviously being a North Carolina native, you know what Johnson C. Smith used to be athletically back in the 50s and 60s. So this is a really cool development that we have at least one team in North Carolina, and they will be the only one that wins a conference championship here in 2025, unless a lot of things work together for East Carolina. But what a great achievement for Johnson C. Smith, Jim.
No doubt. He took over a program that had been down for so many years and has built it. And this is not the first year they've won. This is like the third year in a row that they've had good teams. So he's built it. He's gone out and he's recruited. And again, that's the word that Brew has used. He's got continuity. You don't win championships without continuity on your team and in your coaching staff, leadership within your team. And that's what he's done. And I applaud them for a great job.
Struggling with clutter, calendar chaos, or nonstop notifications? Let Emily Parks at OrganizeForSuccess.com help you get organized and take control of your time. She's a North Carolina-based productivity pro who empowers busy people like you to work smarter and stress less. Visit OrganizeForSuccess.com and schedule your free discovery session today.
All right, let's get to our weekend 10-second drill where we go through every one of the big games in the state of North Carolina. And they start out on Friday night at the Carter under the lights. It's NC State against Florida State. The Seminoles getting red hot lately, and the Wolfpack coming off a very disappointing game against another Florida team in the Miami Hurricanes. So, Brew, who do you have, Seminoles or Wolfpack?
Coach, I think that there's going to be an absolutely electric environment at Carter Finley on Friday night. Coach Dorn is going to have those guys lit, playing their tails off, and I predict the NC State victory over the Noles.
Mike, I'm going to base it on the numbers, and I just looked at the numbers right now. The Wolfpack is 4-1 at home. The Seminoles are 0-3 on the road. So who do you think I'm picking? I'm picking the Wolf.
Well, North Carolina Central will be at Morgan State. I'll go ahead and pick right there. Trey Oliver and NC Central go Eagles. Western Carolina is at VMI. Boy, after a very, very strong middle part of the season, the Catamounts of Kerwin Bell have lost their last 2 games. They dropped the big mountain game over the weekend against East Tennessee State. I will go ahead and pick Western Carolina to finish strong right there against the Keydets. Brew, Charlotte is at Georgia. This one is a tough one. I know Jimmy's going to pick the Bulldogs because he's a closet Bulldog fan as a former Gator. But what do you think about this?
Well, I think it's unfortunate that Charlotte is depending upon this game to get a paycheck from Georgia. You're better off playing it now because you're probably going to get some players hurt. You're going to lose some guys maybe in this game and that may not be able to finish the year. Those games have to be played because schools need the income, but it's unfortunate that they'll be at such a disadvantage. And obviously the Georgia Bulldogs should be in great shape against Charlotte.
Mr. Explosive Play, Jim Collins. Let's talk about that Campbell-Elon game over the weekend. I bring that up because our next game that we're going to talk about right here is Campbell at Towson. Towson will win this game, but I got to ask you, in that Campbell-Elon game, Campbell's going in. They're going to win the game. They're on the 5-yard line. There's a turnover, and on the next play, your Elon Fighting Phoenix go 95 yards on the score. How happy were you when you watched that video replay?
Very excited for Trish and the Fighting Phoenix. I texted with Trish today and congratulated him on the win. And he said, Jim, it was such an up and down game. And we were fortunate to win, but we held in there and we did the things that we needed to do to win the game. So happy for Elon and happy for Trish.
Delaware is at Wake Forest. We're going to go with the Demon Deacons right there over the Blue Hens. We have East Carolina at UTSA. And Brew, I know you've watched San Antonio play this year. They're a pretty good ball club. Do you think this could be a trap game for East Carolina?
Their past 24 home games, they've won a ton of home games in a row, and they've not been a good football team on the road. I would say this, the game is where, Mike? I'm sorry?
That's at San Antonio.
The statistics say that this is a tough ball game for ECU. They are going to have to do something out of the ordinary to go win this thing on the road. It's a big-time game. It'd be a big-time win. Because, again, like I said, unless I'm mistaken, Jeff Traylor and his guys are 24-0 at home.
Okay, we're going to go to this big game, Jim Collins. Marshall at Appalachian State. It could be the Jim Collins Bowl right here because you know a lot of people involved in this one. Boy, Appalachian State just got beat 58-10. They are in 6th place in the Sun Belt East, and they have lost 4 games in a row. Now, you can lose to JMU big. You can even lose to Coastal Carolina. But if Marshall goes into Boone and rubs their nose in that Kid Brewer Stadium turf, man, that's going to be really, really tough for those former Mountaineers to handle. You know how passionate this Marshall-Appalachian State rivalry can be.
It's a great rivalry that goes back long before a lot of people would realize it. The November 14th anniversary of the plane crash at Marshall University, where the entire team and some of their fans were killed, is a standing tradition at Marshall University. So I salute them for that. But it's a huge game. I talked to a coaching friend of mine at App State, and they were concerned, rightfully so, about going to James Madison. This is a critical game for the Mountaineers. They need to beat the Thundering Herd, without a doubt.
Appalachian 4-6, Marshall 5-5, but Marshall coached by former NC State defensive coordinator Tony Gibson. Were you surprised that he has had this type of immediate success, Jim Collins, than you, Brew, in his first season there in Huntington?
Well, I'm actually a little shocked and pleased for him because Charlie Huff, who went to Southern Miss and has done a nice job at Southern Miss, took probably 16, 17, 18 players, I don't know the exact number, off the Marshall team with him to Southern Mississippi. So Coach Gibson had to go in there and almost completely rebuild the roster at Marshall for him. So for him to be 5-5 on the cusp of being bowl eligible, it's a great job.
The one thing we always talk about, and Jim will concur with this, is has there been a history of winning?
Right.
Okay. Has there been a history of winning? Well, at Marshall, you dadgum right there has. They've won a whole bunch of games through the years. Tony Gibson's one hell of a football coach. Marshall, those that refuse to study history are doomed to repeat it. Okay. Marshall's a damn good football program and has been. Go back to Doc Holliday and those guys. And that's a successful program. It's a program that has tremendous amount of pride and they're used to winning. They've won a bunch of games, and so hats off to Tony. He's done a great job.
All right, guys, it's down to the last game that we're going to do right here. You guys are so great this week, though. You guys are giving us great stuff, and I expect your best as we pick this next Big Four rivalry series battle between North Carolina and Duke. This will be a 3:30 start at Kenan Stadium. David Glenn and I will be there with the Old North State tailgate. It'll be our 22nd stop of the year. We still have a high school game that we're going to add later this week on a Friday night. And our big partnership with the North Carolina High School Athletic Association and their championships coming soon to Durham, Chapel Hill, and Hickory. So stay tuned for more on that. But guys, it's the battle for the victory bell. Will Bill Belichick build a game plan worthy of a bell, or will Manny Diaz get in a better mood? He's been a little grumpy lately, and Manny always seems to bring a solid effort in when he plays against the Tar Heels. So what's your pick right here? Brewster, will go with you.
I got to go. I think Coach Belichick is getting his first taste of this rivalry, and it's going to be tremendous. I think that their offense, they'll put together a nice plan, and I think somehow, some kind of way, that victory bell will find its way back over to Chapel Hill.
I think the Blue Devils will finally show up, and Manny will have an excellent defensive plan to handle that anemic North Carolina offense at this point in time. And I think the Blue Devil offense will get back on track. We didn't spend a whole lot of time talking about the Wahoos. The Wahoos played a great game against the Blue Devils on Saturday. But let me say this, I think the Blue Devils will be ready to play, and they will come out of Kenan Stadium with the victory bell.
What do you say in a pregame pep talk to the Duke Blue Devils, Jim Collins, and then Brew?
Well, the first thing that you make sure they understand is that those assholes 8 miles away, you're going to see them year round. And all of a sudden, if you go to dinner anywhere that's a popular place, you're going to run into them. And the fans are always going to remind you that you did not play well and you lost to those people. And I was there, so I'm telling you what I would say if I was at Duke. In that ugly blue color, whatever that color is called. They want to call it the color of the sky, whatever, but you can't lose to that blue. And we got to get the bell back, and we got to get it painted, and we got to carry it back with us. So let's go play our asses off, and let's get after them from the first kickoff to the final whistle, and let's go kick that ass.
Okay, Brewster, give us the big coach talk for the Tar Heels.
Here we go, man. Just understand how important this game is to every person. It's a Tar Heel state. They don't call it a Duke state. It's the Tar Heel state. And this game is damn important to every. When we kick the ball off, the state of North Carolina is kicking the ball off with us. And I'm going to tell you what, man, it's a 60-minute fist fight. And you better win your individual battle. Every single play, you got a chance to line up and whip somebody's ass. Now you whip their ass. You go kick their goddamn ass for 60 minutes and bring that goddamn victory bell back to Chapel Hill. Absolutely.
Guys, I got to tell you, don't you miss this? It's the rivalry.
I'd love to be there. I would be almost tempted to get in the car and come up there and, Brew, you and I stand on the sidelines with each other and just battle it out the entire game.
This has been Bold North State Football Daily, an exclusive presentation of the North Carolina Sports Network. Make sure you follow us on social media at the NC Sportsnet, and check out our website that is wall-to-wall coverage of North Carolina sports at ncsportsnetwork.com. Telling the stories of the Bold North State, this is the North Carolina Sports Network.